Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Well, how you doing this holiday season? I was thinking about what we could talk about today, and this weekend, and in fact, last week, one of my friends she lost her cat, who she loved very dearly, and she was mourning the loss of her cat. And my husband's aunt just passed away suddenly, like yesterday, 2 days ago, and it was very sudden. And so it had me thinking about the grieving process and, just how vital it is for the human experience to not live in the grieving process. It's called a process for a reason because we're processing our emotions and processing our feelings. And whenever I'm dealing with any sort of loss, however great or small it may seem to someone else, it's still a loss to me. And whether that be the loss of a relationship, the loss of a job, the loss of a pet, the loss of a loved one, I'm dealing with loss. And the amazing thing about how God developed us is, you know, it doesn't want my higher power, I don't believe, wants me to sit in the emotions of morose and depression. Depression is one of the phases of the grieving process, as is anger. And certainly when you lose something you love, or something that means something to you, or any kind of loss, you're going to have those feelings creep up. And what do you do with them? Well, it's you process them. The thing with this old alcoholic here is, when I used to feel emotions, I didn't know what to do with them. I would stuff them way down because that's what I knew to do. And it didn't work. It just didn't work. Eventually, they make their way to the surface and explode, or I just drank them down. Drank as I drank to push down, self medicate. Drugs were never part of my story, but doesn't mean other people don't do drugs to help them not feel. It's, whatever your vehicle, some people choose to stop the process from occurring so they don't have to feel, so they don't have to feel that depression. They don't have to go through that anger. But the emotions are there. They're going to live there. And, you have to feel them and release them, let them go. And then eventually the process works its way through and you find your way to the other side, which is acceptance. And on the other side of acceptance is always grace. And that's where you find the serenity. It's no surprise the serenity prayer says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. It's part of the grieving process. That prayer, the alcoholics kind of took it for their own, but it actually existed long before Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was actually found by them when it was in a newspaper article of a obituary section of somebody mourning the loss of their mother. Isn't that something? So the prayer itself is part of the grieving process. So, the grieving process is denial, bargaining, denial, depression, anger, and then into acceptance. And, you can fluctuate between any of those throughout the process. When I was going through a really bad breakup of a really bad relationship that was really not good for either one of us, I knew I was going to have to go through the grieving process. And I just remember saying, buckle up, buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy, bumpy ride. But eventually the plane will land and you'll be able to get out and walk free. And that's exactly what happened. It was a bumpy ride. There were days I wanted to cry. I curled up in a ball and cried. That's all I could do. There were days when I was so angry, I couldn't stand it. And then I would go back into my crying. And then it would, it just ebbs and flows until it kind of settles in. It's like, okay, acceptance. And all right, I'm good. I've gone through the process. The only way out is through with these things. I heard in one of my 12-step recovery meetings, it's like, this too shall pass. But in the meantime, there's the meantime. So you got to get through that meantime. How are you going to get through that meantime today? What's your solution today? And, stuffing is for turkeys. It's not for emotions. I'm going to call this one. Stuffing is for turkeys, not emotions. But don't stuff those emotions. You've been given this gift of life, so feel it. Don't rob yourself of the entire experience. As much as the bad hurts and the pain hurts, it doesn't get better if you sit in it, and it doesn't get better if you stuff it. I spent my first year of sobriety. Eventually, they kind of find their way up, and I'd just be walking along, having a normal day, and then just find myself bursting out in tears. I'm like, what the heck's going on? Why am I crying? Well, because these emotions that have been trapped in me just suddenly got released and just free, and they just had to be let free. So, whatever it is, go through it. And don't judge whatever you're grieving. The loss of a cat can be super devastating for somebody, just as the loss of, a loved one, because the cat is a loved one for the person. We don't judge anybody's grieving process. Everybody goes through their own grieving process. So if you're, especially feeling it right now around Christmas, that's going to be a time when these emotions are probably going to creep up more for those that are dealing with these amazing losses. Lean into it. Trust the process. Know it's going to be okay. Breathe. Feel the emotion. Release the emotion. Stand up. Brush yourself off. And thank God for the ability to feel today. All right. That's my soapbox. Stuffing is for turkeys, not emotions. All right. Listen, if you're enjoying these, go ahead and subscribe. Let's keep in touch. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next week for another Monday message. Bye, everyone.